Hey guys, welcome to the Way Wednesdays virtual Midrash. I am glad that you can join me. This is going to be a wonderful time. We're going through the Torah and we are going through the book of Numbers. In case you haven't been with us, you should know where we are. Hopefully you do. Boy, I tell you, when I go through these portions, I find so many amazing things. And what's even cooler is it corresponds with what I'm teaching this coming Shabbat in Mark chapter 6. So I recommend that we get started. Here we go. Why don't we just jump right in and we'll get going. So Numbers 25, we are looking at a person we all know, Phineas, right? So last week what we saw is that there was this plague because the children of Israel had brought in Midianite women, and there was one man and woman in particular that were in the tent weeping at the door of the tabernacle. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, took his javelin and he plunged them through. Wow. All right. So here we are in verse 10. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned back my wrath from the children of Israel because he was zealous with my zeal among them, so that I did not consume the children of Israel in my zeal. Therefore, behold, I give to him my covenant of peace, and it shall be to him and his descendants after him a covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous for his God and made atonement for the children of Israel. Now, the name of the Israelite who was killed with the Midianite woman was Zimri, the son of Salu, the leader of a father's house among the Simeonites. And the name of the Midianite woman who was killed was Cosbi, the daughter of Zur. He was head of the people of a father's house in Midian. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, harass the Midianites and attack them, for they harassed you with their schemes, by which they seduced you in the matter of Peor and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of a leader of Midian, their sister, who was killed in the day of the plague because of Peor. All right, so Phineas, this guy, at first glance, you're like, well, that was pretty harsh, Phineas. But there was bad situation, right? You had this plague that killed 24,000 people. What was this plague? Well, apparently it's the same plague that we have seen before, where the fire of God breaks out. Let's take a look at that in Numbers chapter 11. If memory serves me, there it is. Now, when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, for the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. So the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some in the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire was quenched. So he called the name of the place Taberah, because of the fire of the Lord had burned among them. So this apparently is the same type of plague that's happening. Now, it seems like, wait a second, why is God always so angry, right? This is one of these characterizations of God that, in the Old Testament, he's just this mean, old, jealous God who's always burning people. And, if you don't do exactly what he says, and he's going to trash you. And unfortunately, that kind of characterization has really played into the hands of people who are contrary to God's commandments, contrary to his Torah. But we have to understand the situation, right? So when we're talking about a story, we need to know, what is the setting, right? What's the set? What's on stage? Well, the stage here is that God is in the midst of his people. I don't mean like, God is everywhere, that kind of thing, but the manifest presence of God, whatever that looks like. We're told what it looks like. It was a pillar of fire. There was a cloud by day. And this fire, this incredible fire of God that had led them out of Egypt, that had taken them through the Red Sea, that had provided them, that acted as a wall against Pharaoh. This fire that they had been following for all this time, that's the fire that we're talking about. And it almost seems like people got lax, like they were no longer impressed by this. Has that ever happened to you? When you first I don't know, maybe you get a new house or a new car or a new anything. And you first go and you're like, wow, this is so amazing. I know when we first got this house, I was like, this is incredible. And if I'm not careful, it can be easy for me to take it for granted. So I make it a practice to thank God regularly for my blessings. And I think that was because maybe just a little bit, I lived in Bolivia for a year. And before that, I lived in the Dominican Republic for about 2 months. And in both of those places, it wasn't altogether bad. Actually, it was worse in the Dominican Republic, quite frankly. We did not have indoor plumbing. So I really learned to appreciate that. When I was in Bolivia, I didn't have hot showers for many months on end. And then when I did, they had this weird electrical system where it would come down, it would heat the water as it came through an electrical coil at the end of this thing. Being a tall guy, I got a little bit too close to the end of that shower spigot. And yeah, I got zapped all right. Anyway, I've learned to really appreciate the so-called small things in life. And I think this may be partly what is to blame for Israel. They've kind of grown accustomed to God. Like, oh yeah, we've got that pillar of fire over there. No big deal, right? And we are no more removed really from God. We don't see his manifest presence in that same sense. But we know that God is omnipresent. He's in all places. And so he hears us and sees us just as much as he saw them. And we can get into that same place of like, well, God's cool with this, right? No big deal. And we can really shortchange this incredible awe that surrounds God, of who he is, his holiness, his power, his glory. And we can just say, he's just my bud, And that's, of course, not a healthy thing. Now, God is incredibly gracious. He wants to be our friend. He wants a relationship with us. But we need to understand who he is. And if we forget that, then we can start taking things for granted and we can find ourselves in the same situation. And how does Satan get us into this? When you're in this close relationship with God, right? Here's Israel. They're going out with God and he's leading them, and the fire and the cloud and all these things, and manna is raining down and water's coming out of rocks. How could this have happened? Balaam came along. He tried to curse them, and God's like, nope, not going to happen because they're blessed. How did it happen? It was when Israel, in a sense, opened up the gates and said, come on in. That is the only way Satan can get us, is when we open the doors of our heart and say, come on in. And we invite sin. We entertain sin. Now, why would we do that? Well, because it's all glittery at first. It's all shiny and nice and it looks wonderful. And let's be fair. There's a certain amount of pleasure that comes from various sins. But here's the reality. They don't last that long. Yes, they feel great in the moment, but then they're over, and then you're left chasing the dragon because now you need the next rush. This Baal of Peor, he was a bad god. Peor, this Baal of Peor, the way that they worshipped him, it had to do with the orifices on your body, the openings on your body, especially where excrement would come out. And these were considered somehow sacred places. And so they would, let's just say it's potty talk if I really get into it too much. And this whole mixture of excrement with sexual perversions was all part of what they were doing. It was really a nasty business. And, this is an incredible slap in the face to God. He's like, look, I've got you. I'm providing for you. I'm a wall of fire around you. If you want a wife, marry one, right? Here you are, Israel. You guys can get married and all this stuff and all these wonderful things. Just follow my ways and you'll be blessed. But the allure of sex and whatever, this somehow was pleasing in their eyes. And so they went out and they went whoring after other gods. Now we have to understand that this scenario was so grave and so impactful that God was still talking about it in the book of Revelation. He talks about the sin of Balaam. He talks about this in Peter, the sin of Balaam, who was greedy, and how he caused Israel to sin in this sexual immorality is how they sinned. And that is how God then began to curse Israel. And that's what happens when we are followers of Yeshua. We've got a wall of fire around us. But when we start to entertain sin and whatnot, then that disappears and we become vulnerable. But if we stay in him, we have this incredible immunity. He can't touch us. It's so awesome when we stay with him. So what Phineas did is that he had the courage to just pick up a javelin. Now you may say, well, wait, these people should have gotten a trial and everything. No, they were already being tried, right? It was obvious what they were doing. He had his mandate and he went and did it. Now, to be fair, if you live in America, we do need to follow the laws, and there are different things we need to consider. However, that doesn't mean that we should just sit back and do nothing. Right? We are called to stand for righteousness. All right. And I understand that things can become very quickly politically charged. So just a word of caution, consider very carefully, do your research, make sure you know that you know that you know about a particular topic before you start acting like our good friend here that did this. Okay. So don't become a Phineas right away. Make sure you understand. In his case, he could see them in the tent and everybody could hear them. It was very clear what was happening, and the mandate was massively clear. There was no, weird legal red tape or anything like this that you had to sort through. It was very clear what was happening. So yes, take a stand on things, but make sure you know that you know what you're dealing with and that you have the facts. That's incredibly important. All right, let's get to the next chapter. More great stuff. So we just finished 25. We're in 26. Now it came to pass after the plague that the Lord spoke to Moses and Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saying, "Take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel from 20 years old and above, and by their fathers' houses, who are able to go to war in Israel." So Moses and Eleazar the priest spoke with them in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho, saying, "Take a census of the people from 20 years old and above, just as the Lord commanded Moses and the children of Israel who came out of the land of Egypt." Reuben was the firstborn of Israel. The children of Reuben were of Hanoch, the family of the Hanochites; of Palu, the family of the Paluites; of Hezron, the family of the Hezronites; of Carmi, the family of the Carmites. These are the families of the Reubenites. Those who were numbered of them were 43,730. And the son of Palu was Eliab. The sons of Eliab were Nemuel, Datan, and Aviram. These are the Datan and Aviram representatives of the congregation who contended with Moses and Aaron in the company of Korah when they contended against the Lord. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up together with Korah when that company died, when the fire devoured 250 men, and they became a sign. Nevertheless, the children of Korah did not die. The sons of Simeon, according to their families, were of Nemuel, the family of the Nemuelites; of Yamin, the family of the Yaminites; Yachin, the family of the Yachinites; of Zerah, the family of the Zarhites; and of Shaul, the family of the Shaulites. These are families of the Simeonites, 20,200. The sons of Gad, according to their families, were of Zephon, the family of the Zephonites; of Haggai, the family of the Haggites; of Shuni, the family of the Shunites; of Ozni, the family of the Oznites; of Eri, the family of the Erites; of Arod, the family of the Arodites; and of Areli, the family of the Arelites. These are the families of the sons of God, according to those who were numbered of them, 40,500. The sons of Judah were Er and Onan, and Er and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Judah, according to their families, were of Shelah, the family of the Shelanites; of Perez, the family of the Parzites; Of Zerah, the family of the Zarhites. And the sons of Perez were of Hezron, the family of the Hezronites. Of Hamul, the family of the Hamulites. These are the families of Judah according to those who were numbered of them 76,500. The sons of Issachar according to their families were of Tola, the family of the Tolites. Of Puah, the family of the Punites. Of Yashuv, the family of the Yushubites. Of Shimon, the family of the Shimronites. These are the families of Issachar according to those who were numbered of them 64,300. The sons of Zebulun according to their families were of Sered, the family of the Sardites. Of Elon, the family of the Elonites. Of Yahleel, the family of the Yahlaites. These are the families of the Zebulunites according to those who were numbered of them 60,500. The sons of Joseph, according to their families by Manasseh and Ephraim, were the sons of Manasseh, of Machir, the family of the Machirites. And Machir begot Gilead, of Gilead, the family of the Gileadites. These are the sons of Gilead, of Yezer, the family of the Yezerites. Of Helek, the family of the Helekites. Of Asriel, the family of the Asrielites. Of Shechem, the family of the Shechemites. Of Shemidah, the family of the Shmediites. Of Hefer, the family of the Heferites. Of Zelophehad, the son of Hefer had no sons but daughters, and the names of the daughters of Zelophehad were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tizra. These are the families of Manasseh, and those who were numbered of them were 52,700. These are the sons of Ephraim according to their families of Shutelah, the family of the Shutalites. Of Becher, the family of the Bachrites. Of Taran, the family of the Tahanites. And these are the sons of Shutelah. Of Aran, the family of the Aranites. These are the families of the sons of Ephraim according to those who were numbered of them 32,500. These are the sons of Joseph according to their families. The sons of Benjamin according to their families were of Bela, the family of the Belaites. Of Ashbel, the family of the Ashbelites. Of Ahiram, the family of the Ahiramites. Of Shufam, the family of the Shufamites. Of Hufam, the family of the Hufamites. And the sons of Bela were Ard and Naaman. Of Ard, the family of the Ardites. Of Naaman, the family of the Naamites. These are the sons of Benjamin according to their families, and those who were numbered of them were 45,600. These are the sons of Dan according to their families. Of Shuham, the family of the Shuhamites. These are the families of Dan according to their families. All the families of Shuhamites according to those who were numbered of them were 64,400. The sons of Asher according to their families were of Jimnah, the family of the Jimnites. Of Yesui, the family of the Yesuites. Of Beriah, the family of the Beriites. And of the son of Beriah of Heber, the family of the Heberites. Of Malchiel, the family of the Malchielites. And the name of the daughter of Asher was Sarah. These are the families of the sons of Asher according to those who are numbered of them 53,400. I'm going to skip ahead because these are a lot of names. All right, 52. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, to these the land shall be divided as an inheritance according to the number of names. To a large tribe you shall give a larger inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a smaller inheritance. Each shall be given in its inheritance according to those who were numbered of them. But the land shall be divided by lot. They shall inherit according to the names of the tribes of their fathers. According to the lot of their inheritance, according to the lot, their inheritance shall be divided between the larger and the smaller. And these are those who were numbered of the Levites according to their families. Of Gershon, the family of the Gershonites. Of Kohath, the family of the Kohathites. Of Merari, the family of the Merarites. These are the families of the Levites, the family of the Libnites, the family of the Hebronites, the family of the Mahlites, the family of the Mushites, and the family of the Korathites. And Kohath begot Amram. The name of Amram's wife was Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, who was born to Levi in Egypt. And Amram, she bore Aaron and Moses and their sister Miriam. To Aaron were born Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. And Nadab and Abihu died when they offered profane fire before the Lord. Now those who were numbered of them were 23,000, every male from a month old and above, for they were not numbered among the other children of Israel, because there was no inheritance given to them among the children of Israel. These are those who were numbered by Moses and Eleazar the priest, who numbered the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. But among these there was not a man of those who were numbered by Moses and Aaron the priest when they numbered the children of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord had said to them, they shall surely die in the wilderness. So there was not left a man of them except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. All right, I'm going to keep going because those were very interesting, but we're going to keep going here. All right, 27. Then came the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, from the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. And these are the names of his daughters: Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses, before Eleazar the priest, and before the leaders and all the congregation by the door of the tabernacle of meeting, saying, our father died in the wilderness, but he was not in the company of those who gathered together against the Lord in the company with Korah, but he died in his own sin, and he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be removed from among his family because he had no son? Give us a possession among our father's brothers. So Moses brought their case before the Lord, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, the daughters of Zelophehad speak what is right. You shall surely give them possession of inheritance among their father's brothers, and cause the inheritance of their father to pass to them. And you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall cause his inheritance to pass to his daughter. If he has no inheritance, then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to his father's brothers. And if his father has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to the relative closest to him in his family, and he shall possess it. And it shall be to the children of Israel a statute of judgment, just as the Lord commanded Moses. All right, so that's a very interesting passage. Did God forget about this? I mean, God knows all. How is it that he didn't put this in the instructions in the first place? It's an interesting question. And of course, we're not told specifically, but as we study this passage, the sense that we get is that we are to come to God because he's given us principles. The principles in the Torah are absolute. They're wonderful, and there's application. But God did not spell out every particular situation that could possibly arise, or we'd have a volume of books like the Talmud, right? And even that the Talmud doesn't cover everything, and that's probably what I would consider one of the shortcomings of the Talmud, is that they are trying to catalog every possible nuance of what could possibly happen in this situation. How many times you've got to wash your hands, how many times you've got to pray every day, right? So that it's not that there's no freedom. Some people might find a lot of freedom in that, but it's that not all those things need to be regulated. Not all those things need to be written down and codified and say, you've got to do it this way. God does give us liberty in so much. The principle is simple, right? It starts with love. That's principle number one. Then we have love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself, right? So now we've gone from this concept of love, God is love, right? And so now it's this relationship between God and man and between man and man. And then we have, okay, what does that look like? Well, in my love to God, there are certain things I'm going to do and certain things I'm not going to do. In my relationship to man, there are certain things I will do and certain things I won't do, because my love both compels me and constrains me in these relationships. And if I have love at the heart of it, then that is an incredibly good guide. However, there's something called sin that's in my heart. There's a tendency to try to justify my own actions, to do what is right for numero uno, right? For just me, not to worry about anybody else, not to care about other people. And I think this is something that is in every human. Some people have much more caring than others, but at some point, there's still something that they need to work on. And then there's other people at the other end of the spectrum that it's just all about me. It was never about anybody but me, right? And so wherever you are on that spectrum, we need God's commandments to show us, remind us of what that love actually looks like. So Those are the principles of love. For example, when God says you shall not murder, well, what about kidnapping? And that's not exactly murder, is it? Well, no, you're not killing this person, but you're stealing this person. So is it robbery? Well, no, because this is now about somebody's life. And you are, in a sense, murdering what their life could be by stealing them and then subjugating them to whatever you have for them. And so the penalty for that is execution, because you have taken a life, even though technically you haven't taken a life, but you've, in a sense, taken that life. And so that is the penalty, is the death penalty. Well, so here we come to the division of land and who's going to get what, right? So these are the big principles. You almost wonder if God's like, I wonder if anybody's going to say anything. Now, of course, he knows everything, right? But just because you know everything doesn't mean you make everything happen, right? So, he says this, sets this out, and I'm sure this is probably stewing for a little bit. People are thinking about it. They're letting it sink in. The word's spreading. Not everybody hears this initially, but as the word spreads, they hear about it. And so probably several days go by when these daughters of Zelophehad come along. And they've thought about this. They're like, well, wait a second. Our father was not one of the rebels, right? He did not deserve, or he wasn't one that was being punished with death in the wilderness. He just, he died of his own stuff, right? I mean, he had his own sins, but he was not part of that rebellion. But he died, and he didn't have any sons. He had the four of us. So why should it be that his name will be forgotten just because he had no sons? And what I appreciate about this is that they showed some guts, right? They showed courage. They came up and they said, well, wait a second. We know this is from the Most High, but we have a question about this. And here's the thing that I love about Judaism in particular, is that Judaism seems to have less trouble asking, well, wait a second, God. Sometimes in Christianity, we can get this perspective that, well, God said it, that settles it. I'm not going to dare even question what God said. And it's not that you're questioning God's motives or you're saying, well, wait a second, you're no good, God. You're not. It's not that kind of thing. But it's like, Lord, help me to understand, because here's what you said and here's what I see. Who's the classic example of this? Well, Abraham, of course, right? In fact, God even says, hey, Abraham's my friend. Should I not tell him what's going on? Let's take a look at that passage. It's really cool. This is in Genesis 18. So here's Abraham. He's sitting by the terebinth tree. He comes along. Oh, my Lord's, come on over here, and all these things. Then the men rose from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on their way. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham, what I am doing? Since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him, in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him. All right, so this is the context for this. And then, of course, we hear that Sodom and Gomorrah are going to be destroyed. And so then Abraham, here he stood before the Lord, and he came near and said, would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? What if there's 50? All right, so I won't do it for 50. And Abraham is realizing, okay, I guess there's not 50. So now he's like, I better strike up another bargain here. Then Abraham answered and said, well, indeed now I who am but dust and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose there were 5 less, right? So what, for 45? For that I would not destroy it. What if there's only 40? And then he says, okay, Lord, don't be angry with me, and I will speak. What about 30? I won't do it for 30. Indeed, now I have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20. Okay, I won't destroy it. Let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak but once more. Suppose 10 should be found there. I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. All right, so what is so beautiful about that passage is God's like, hey, I'm going to tell Abraham what I'm about to do. Okay, I want him to understand. And what we really see, what God was really wanting is interaction, collaboration. Now, look, God is never going to violate his righteous ways. That's impossible. What is the one thing God cannot do? He cannot lie. He just can't. It's impossible for God to lie. He always will tell the truth, and he will always do what is right. He will always do what is right. But within that, doing what's right, there's some room for different ways that righteousness could be attained. And so there's room for discussion about this. There's room for interaction, collaboration. I take it back to putting together IKEA furniture. I remember when, I got an IKEA bookshelf and I brought it home, and my kids were there to help me. They were little, they were like 2 and 4, and they wanted to help me put it together. Now, did they really help me? No, it made it longer. It took longer because they were helping, right? Oh, but it was so cute when they were so little and they brought over the wrench to help me, and they were trying to put things together. And I could have done it faster by myself. But you know what? It was fun doing it with them because they were cute. And that, I think, is the same. Maybe not we're cute. Okay. Yeah, probably we're not so cute. But God wants a friend. He's love. And so love needs an object to give that love to. And he doesn't want to just, pet us like animals. But he wants us to grow up, to be fully mature, to have all of our senses. And even though we do not in any way compare to God, but he's made us in his image and in his likeness, and he wants us to have a part in what he's doing. He doesn't need our wisdom, but he wants us to have some skin in the game, as it were. And so here he's put out, this is what the division of the land looks like. And so the daughters of Zelophehad, they come along and say, well, wait a second. What about this scenario? And so the whole point here is that God says, well, they're correct, right? And so then he gives a decree for that situation as to what should happen. But notice that it may not have been stated had they not come. And so God is inviting us to be a participant in what he's doing. And if we don't understand, we can ask him. If we even disagree, say, Lord, I don't get that. That doesn't seem right to me. He's okay with that. It doesn't mean you begin slandering God. That's a whole different thing altogether. But remember, Abraham was like, well, who am I but dust and ashes? But let me speak to you, O Lord. What if there's 45 or 30 or 20? And God's like, okay, go ahead, say it. I'm not mad. I'm listening. And he then makes those provisions based on what we say. And that is one reason that we pray. It's not that we're going to change God's mind, but again, within those parameters of his provision, we have opportunity to give our input. Now, understand, I'm not saying that we should start telling God what he should do. He's way smarter than us. I like to say that God has all the engineering figured out. But he doesn't want us to just sit there like a bump on a log, okay? He wants us to be part of this and to cry out. And sometimes, we don't always know what the prayer is going to manifest, what the answer will be. Sometimes it will be a no, right? I mean, Abraham was praying for Sodom and Gomorrah. It's not like Sodom and Gomorrah were not destroyed, but within that whole scenario, then Lot and his family were saved out of that. At least 3 of them, sadly. So again, God is inviting us, calling us to be part of what he's doing. He really wants to work with us. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. Let me make this a little bigger. I'm just seeing that the font size is a little bit small. So let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay. Now the Lord said to Moses, go up into this Mount Abiram or Abarim, and see the land which I have given to the children of Israel. And when you have seen it, you shall be gathered to your people, and as Aaron your brother was gathered. For in the wilderness of Zin, during the strife of the congregation, you rebelled against my command to hallow me at the waters before their eyes. These are the waters of Meribah at Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin. Then Moses spoke to the Lord, saying, let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation, who may go out before them and go in before them, who may lead them out and bring them in, that the congregation of the Lord may not be like sheep which have no shepherd. All right, so this is, again, beautiful. Now, first of all, it's, of course, a little bit sad that Moses can't go. I feel bad for the guy. But God reminds him, okay, this is the reason why you don't get to go in. But notice this. You're going to be gathered. Isn't that a beautiful word? Oh, it's so beautiful. And I grew up as a dispensationalist and believing in the pre-trib rapture. But understand that the idea, this concept of the rapture, regardless of when it happens, but this idea of the rapture is a gathering point. God is going to gather his people. The difference, of course, at the so-called rapture is that we don't die. Here, Moses is going to die, but he's going to be gathered. And we're going to see that he's going to appear on Mount Hermon with Jesus, and they're going to talk about what Jesus was going to do through his death. This all happens on Mount Hermon. So this is a very significant passage. So God did not forget or discount all that Moses had done. But to whom much is given, much is required. And so here, Moses doesn't get to go in because it says, you rebelled against my command. You might say, well, wait a second. He wasn't like, no, I'm not going to do it, God. But God told him what to do, speak to the rock. And he didn't speak to the rock. Did he know what to do? Yes, he did. He absolutely knew. He had very clear instructions. And it was because of his anger that he struck the rock twice when God said, speak to the rock. And God took that very seriously. And so Moses was not allowed to go in. Sad story, but he makes it in the end. And I am of the persuasion that he will be one of the two witnesses there in Revelation chapter 11. So I think he's going to have a pretty awesome showdown in the end days. But he says, again, you rebelled against my command to hallow me, which means to make me holy, to sanctify. You didn't do that. And so he doesn't get to go in as a result. Now, Moses then says, let the Lord of the God of all spirits set up a man who may go out, etc., so that the congregation of the Lord may not be like sheep who have no shepherd. Now, what's amazing about this is I'm teaching through Mark chapter 6, and this is the very thing that Jesus said of the people. And Jesus, when he came out, saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion because they were like sheep not having a shepherd. So he began to teach them many things. Now, in that whole scenario in Mark, where he teaches them, you guys know the story. He teaches for a while. It gets late. And so the disciples say, send them away that they may buy bread. And Jesus says, no, you feed them. Like, well, we're going to get all the money to feed these people. He says, well, go see what you have. And they find some fish and some bread. And then he has them lie down or sit down in these groups of 50s and groups of hundreds. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's kind of reminiscent of what happened here in Numbers, where God took a census. He counted everybody. And so then they also were counted. And of course, they were divided into 12 at the feeding of the 5,000. And then they took up 12 baskets, right? So you see the 12 children of Israel all over the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. But this beautiful phrase that were like sheep which have no shepherd. That's what Jesus saw. And he had compassion on the people. He had compassion. Whereas Moses, who was supposed to speak to the rock, was angry. He was angry. And it may be that Moses is saying, okay, God, set up a man who will do this, who will be this shepherd to your people. Where I failed as a shepherd, now set up a man who will be that shepherd. Now look at this. This is beautiful once again. And so the answer to, okay, who are you going to do? And the Lord said to Moses, take Joshua. What is his name in Hebrew? Yehoshua. Yehoshua. That is his name. So in his name, this beautiful thing of his name, Yehoshua, right? What do we see here? We see Yud, He, Vav, okay, from Yeho, which is of course from Yehovah. And then we see Shua, or obviously these are brought together. And so it's from Yeshua, or from the word Yasha. Yasha means salvation. So this composite name is Yehovah, is salvation. Now, let me just give one word about the pronunciation, because there's lots of discussion that people have. It's usually people that haven't really studied Hebrew and they come up with some kind of weird ideas. I just want you guys to understand it. You don't have to take my word for it, but I'll explain the Hebrew here. It's Yehoshua. First of all, you can see how it's pointed, right? It's Yeh. Then there's an O right here, and then Shu-ah. So it's Yehoshua. Yehoshua. That's how it is. These alternate pronunciations of Yahushua or Yahusha, I don't know where these are coming from. They're strange. But the name is Yehoshua. And for what it's worth, you can see in Brown Driver Briggs, they have Yehoshua. Right? So again, that is the pronunciation. And then that would become Jesus or Jesus in the Greek, because there's no H in the middle of a Greek word, and there's no sh in Greek, and there's no ein in Greek. And so the name is greatly reduced to Jesus. We also see, as you look through scripture, that Yehoshua is reduced in the Hebrew to Yeshua. It becomes Yeshua. That is an alternate form that we see in later biblical Hebrew. All right, so look, I don't think it's worth parting ways or breaking up fellowship because of this. So if you know somebody that is into that pronunciation and you're breaking bread together, just say, amen, brother. If you want to get into a discussion, say, well, from what I've understood, it's Yehoshua. But you know what? Hey, it doesn't matter too much at the end of the day. So take it for what it's worth. But notice, who is God going to set up? He's going to set up Yehoshua. Yehovah is salvation. Do we know somebody by that name? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. In fact, it was the Mashiach, Yehoshua, who came, or in the first century, his name would have been pronounced Yeshua. He came. He is so the original Joshua is the type. He's the prototype. And then Jesus is the antitype, right? Jesus is that fulfillment. He comes. And wow, it's so beautiful that Joshua, Yehoshua, the son of Nun, with you, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand on him. Okay, ve'samachta et yadcha alav. So this right here is when you put a hand on somebody like this, you're conferring authority to them. And he says, set before Eleazar the priest and before all the congregation, inaugurate him in their sight. And you shall give him some of your authority to him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient. Now, it's interesting that this word here, mehodcha, isn't really the word authority. This is more like the word glory or honor or splendor, or something that is something you might see with your eyes. Whereas authority is pretty hard to see with your eyes. It's very abstract. But it's that sense of putting your hands on. In fact, other places where it's translated as authority, it's often something is in your hand or it's under your hand. It means that it's in your, authority, right? It's in your control. You're the one that's controlling this, and it's a rightful control. It's a rightful position of power. It's a rightful position of rule. And so that, in a sense, is what authority is. And so this is now given to Joshua. And so the children of Israel may be obedient. He shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall inquire before the Lord for him by the judgment of the Urim. At his word they shall go out, and at his word they shall come in. He and all the children of Israel with him, all the congregation. So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He took Joshua and set him before Eleazar the priest and before all the congregation. He laid his hands on him and inaugurated him just as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. Wow. Beautiful stuff. All right, chapter 28. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command the children of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food for my offerings made by fire is a sweet aroma to me. You shall be careful to offer to me at their appointed time, which is at their moed, right? So that's interesting, the appointed feast. And you shall say to them, this is the offering made by fire, which you shall offer to the Lord. 2 male lambs in their first year without blemish, day by day, as a regular burnt offering. That's called the tamid, right? So you can see that right here. That's called the tamid offering. In English, a regular burnt offering, but in Hebrew, olah tamid. So always, this is what this means, always. So you can think of it something that is like a clock. The clock is always going every day. It's, you see all the different times there, of course, every day, all. The one lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer in the evening. And 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil. It is a regular burnt offering which was ordained at Mount Sinai for a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord. And its drink offering shall be 1/4 of a hin for each lamb. In a holy place you shall pour out the drink to the Lord as an offering. The other lamb you shall offer in the evening as the morning grain offering. And its drink offering, you shall offer it as an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs in their first year without blemish, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with oil and its drink offering. This is the burnt offering for every Sabbath. All right, so this is the tamid for the Sabbath. Besides the regular burnt offering with its drink offering. At the beginnings of your months, you shall present a burnt offering to the Lord, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in their first year without blemish. 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering mixed with oil for each bull. 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering mixed with oil for the 1 ram. And 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for each lamb as a burnt offering of sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord. Their drink offering shall be 1/2 a hin of wine for a bull, 1/3 of a hin for a ram, and 1/4 of a hin for a lamb. This is the burnt offering for each month throughout the months of the year. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering to the Lord shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. On the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of the Lord. And on the 15th day of this month is the feast of unleavened bread, shall be eaten for 7 days. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. And you shall present an offering made by fire as a burnt offering to the Lord. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in their first year. Be sure they are without blemish. Their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah. You shall offer for a bull, and 2/10 for a ram. You shall offer 1/10 of an ephah for each of the 7 lambs, also 1 goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you. You shall offer these besides the burnt offering in the morning, which is for a regular burnt offering. In this manner you shall offer the food of the offering made by fire daily for 7 days as a sweet aroma to the Lord. It shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. And on the 7th day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. Also on the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering to the Lord at your feast of weeks, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. You shall present a burnt offering as a sweet aroma to the Lord, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in their first year, with their grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each bull, 2/10 for one ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also 1 kid of the goats to make atonement for you. Be sure they are without blemish. You shall present them with their drink offerings besides the regular burnt offering for its grain offering. Again, now, why does he keep saying, make sure that there's no blemish on these things? Well, again, within our human hearts, there's a tendency to say, well, not such a big deal. It's just a minor little thing. But remember that God is fiery. And when you bring in something that is profane means something that's common, everyday, mundane, something that's just part of the normal world, then that has an explosive reaction to God, who is holy. I like to take it back to thinking maybe like a clean room, where you cannot have anything that is impure in a clean room. Think of Intel, and where they have these clean rooms and everybody has to wear these funny suits, right? Because they need it to be ultra, ultra, ultra clean in there so that dust does not get into the components. So you might say that is the most holy place in Intel, because they have to make sure it's utterly clean. Or if it's not, then things won't work properly. Your computers won't work as well. Well, it's a similar situation that God's like, look, this animal has to be absolutely pure, because it's making a covering for you so that you and I can hang out together. That's why it's really important. And so if you start bringing all the lame and the sick, the diseased animals, say, well, that's as good as anything. What does the Lord care? It's not going to work. And things will start to break down because, you're not putting the oil in the right place. You're not, changing the fluids in the car, and things start to break after a while if you don't do that proper maintenance. And this is the same idea. Now, I am incredibly glad that Jesus came and became the ultimate sacrifice so that these things do not need to happen on a daily basis, on a perpetual basis, for my sin to be covered. I'm really glad about that. And all of this that was happening back then, it wasn't just an object lesson so that the Israelites would get so tired of this over, some 1,400 years, like, oh, I wish there was a better way. That's not it at all. But ultimately, there was a better way. But it wasn't just to put them in the grind, you got to do this thing. That's unfortunately what some Christians think about all of this stuff back then. It was just busy work. But it wasn't busy work. It had a real distinct purpose. And it was the solution until the fullness of time, when Yeshua came and he would deal with sin once and for all. But until then, this is what had to happen. And it was all because God wanted to be with the people. He wanted to hang out with them. That's all he really wants to do, is to hang out with us. Sometimes, some of these various creeds, confessions and whatnot, they say that man was made to bring God glory and to praise him forever. I'm like, well, we will do that, yes. But I wonder if maybe we're I don't know, maybe they meant it some way different 400 years ago. But when I hear that God made me so that I can glorify him forever, I don't know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, because God created me, he created you, not so that I can sit there and get up to heaven and I got my harp and I'm like, oh, God is so good and holy, holy, so that I can just sing to him the rest of my days or my existence. And don't get me wrong, singing to God is going to be awesome, okay? But he's not there, like, he's not a narcissist. He doesn't need our praise. It's not like he created those cherubim that are before him and that are saying, kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. And he's like, okay, say it again. Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. Now say it again. Excuse me. He didn't like, put them on autopilot. Okay. I want you to say that 10 zillion times and then we'll talk. It's rather, they're in God's presence. They are enjoying God's presence. They're overwhelmed by his beauty. And as they behold God's face, they're like, oh, Whoa. And they're overwhelmed. And then they voluntarily say, holy, holy, holy is the Lord Most High. It's the Lord God, and the whole earth is full of his glory. And then they look at God again. They're like, holy, holy, holy. And they cannot help themselves but to say that. They're overwhelmed when they look on the face of God. So it's not this idea that God created us so that we can just say, holy, holy, holy. But rather, he created us for his pleasure, and he is going to be our pleasure. In fact, he tells us this, that at his right hand are pleasures forevermore. Because to be in God's presence is the epitome of pleasure. All the other things, like what Balaam did and bringing in the Moabite women to seduce the Israelite men, was there pleasure in that? Yes. But it was just itsy bitsy teeny tiny, and it lasted about that long. Whereas being in God's presence is the fullness of joy, the fullness of pleasure, and it lasts, this long, forever and ever and ever and ever is how long it lasts. Radical difference. God wants to be with us, and that is why these sacrifices are so important. And he says, look, don't cheat. Don't take shortcuts. This is important stuff. You need to do it right. You need to do it right, because then we can hang out together. Now, we don't have to deal with any of that stuff because Jesus did it all, right? But here's the trap that we can fall into. Say, well, Jesus paid it all to him I owe, right? And we can sing these songs. We can sing about the blood and all this stuff that is true, but we can fall into the same kind of sin that Israel fell into, in that they became rather lax in their relationship with God. Like, God understands, what's the big deal? There's this fire by day and cloud by day and fire by night. Okay, that's cool. We're, yawn. We've been doing this for a while, and they took God for granted. So now that we are in Yeshua and we're covered by his blood, let's not take him for granted. Because the book of Hebrews is really clear that anybody that tramples the blood of Yeshua underfoot, don't do that. Because then there's no more sacrifice for you. If you're going to trample the ultimate sacrifice, the greatest of all sacrifices, and if you botch that and you have this flippant attitude, then what are you going to do, right? That there's no more sacrifice. This is it. And if you hold that in this vain sense, then there's nothing left for you. So be careful. Be careful to live for him. He wants to be with us, but the enemy is trying to trip us up. And if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves in that difficult position. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for teaching us through this beautiful passage. Oh God, you're so good. We love you. Help us to not become lax or lazy in our relationship, but to be faithful, to be true to you. We give you all the praise, and we say, holy, holy, holy. Thank you, Yeshua. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, guys, many blessings to you. So glad you could be here. Oh, I see that I'm missing a bunch of comments. Yes, looks like just some great comments there. So thank you guys for joining me. I will see you again next week, and I'm looking forward to it. So God bless.